Good morning, everybody. Chair Ryan.
Present.
Vice Chair Furr.
Here.
Member Shuham.
Here.
Member Horland. Member Mateo Bowen. Member Dunn. Member Rydell.
Here.
Member Mead. Member Caggiano.
Present.
Member AJ Ryan.
Here.
Member Newton. Member Glassman. Member Bright Cruz is online. Member Geller.
Perfect. Mr. Cole, we have a quorum, correct?
Yes, we do.
All right, if you would please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, public comment. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment or anyone wishes to speak? Just raise your hand and come forward. It'll be a little less formal. All right, no public comment. Meeting minutes. So I have a motion on the December 20th, 2025 meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
Motion by Horland. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Do I have a motion on January 17th, 2025?
Second.
Motion by Horland, second by Caggiano. Any discussion on that item? All in favor, say aye. All right, that passes unanimously. All right, Executive Director report.
Good morning, everybody. Let's do the financial update real quick. I believe Angela Harms here from Cohen Resnick for an update.
Yeah, turn it on. There you go.
Good. Okay. Angela Harms with Cone Resnick, just a financial report for the end of February. The net cash was $1,649,942 and the net equity was $2,993,987. Anyone, any questions?
Everyone's received the financials as part of the backup. Any questions for accounting or for the executive director on that matter? Member Horland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. I apologize if this was discussed at a prior meeting, but, and this has been, it's no disrespect to either Lori or Jamie, but when we're looking at reducing costs of professional services, are those billable hours, because I've never sat on a board before where we have two attorneys present. So are those billable hours that we're seeing both for Jamie and for Lori?
Okay.
And
Mr.
is there a particular reason that we have two attorneys present?
They are, but I will first say that we are way under budget for legal and we're maybe at half of what's budgeted. We're way below. And we do that since the number of hours at the meetings are relatively small.
Okay.
And there's various items that Lori's been working on that are discussed. So there might be times that we do that. So in a lot of our cities, we do that, have two attorneys. Like in
Okay.
the city of Weston, we always have two attorneys.
Really? I've
And
never seen that
In
before.
Miramar, they always have two attorneys. And there's probably about half the cities have two attorneys present at meetings and some don't.
Because other than Lori sitting in for you when you weren't here a couple of weeks ago, I look at someone of her stature sitting over there and it seems like a waste of her time and talent. So I just wanted to make sure when we're looking at the financials that.
Well, there are a lot of
Sounds
times,
appropriate.
I mean, even looking ahead, that I'm going to be away. So
Okay.
if she hasn't been at the meetings, it's kind of difficult for her to know everything that's been going on. If it was a major expense and we were over budget, we would stop that immediately, but we're way under budget.
All right. Thank you for answering the question.
Thank you, Member Horland. Any other questions? All right, thank you so much. Executive Director report.
Okay, thank you very much. And the next thing I'd like to do, I'd like to introduce Elisa Jones. We've hired her as part-time to be our assistant. Real quick, right up with regard to who Elisa. Elisa Jones joins the Broward Solid Waste Authority as the assistant to the executive director, bringing a wealth of experience in project management and operations. Her expertise spans web and mobile application development, product installation and training, and customer and relationship management. With a strong foundation in nonprofit management, Elisa has recently completed 1.5 Academy Sustainability Accelerator Program and the Climate-Based Fellowship, further deepening her industry-oriented climate literacy. Currently, she is pursuing her Zero Waste Associate Certificate through Zero Waste USA, reinforcing her commitment to sustainability solutions. Elisa also serves as a vice chair of the Broward Sierra Group and is an active member of the Broward WPA Climate Reality Chapter. Realty chapter, sorry. Passionate about environmental protection and public health education, she frequently volunteers with various organizations to drive positive change. In addition to her advocacy work, Elisa is the founder of Engaging Nature, a startup offering freelance project management service to nonprofits and small businesses. She is also a newly appointed member of the Broward County Climate Task Force, where she continues to champion sustainable initiatives.
So on behalf of the executive committee and the governing board, let's give Ms. Jones a welcome.
Good morning. And her help already has been very appreciated. Next item. Just a couple other quick notes with regards to while I have the thing. I know there was a discussion a couple of meetings ago about regionalization. We made contact with Isabel Carbello and of the South Florida Regional Planning Council, and she has set up a regionalization meeting for April 15th with staff with Miami-Dade, here in Broward County and Palm Beach County. I'll have more to report back at the April Executive Committee meeting, and also see if Isabel would be available to actually do a small presentation at that meeting.
Okay, hang on. Mr. Vice Chair.
Yeah, I could just add a little bit to that. Through the South Florida Regional Planning Council, their Miami-Dade did a resolution to the Planning Council, well, to their own commission first, and then asked to be considering in the planning efforts for the South Florida Regional Planning Council, waste in general. And they wanted to be a part of that. They wanted us to be looking at this on a regional level, which is good. And I'm glad you were able to put together that meeting for the 15th. I think that's real good. I think there's lots of things that we can be working on. One other thing that is being looked at is the MPO is looking at the US 27 and is trying to figure out where should that line go. And in my opinion, it should be going near some landfills, you know, and to make that sense. And how far and which lines we could work together, like the sugar mills already have some lines. So where can we collaborate on that? And that's some of the discussion that'll be part of it.
Yeah, I think everybody's looking forward to that. And that includes also, I believe there's counties has also been invited to that. I know Kevin's going and
Yeah.
Natasha, so I appreciate that. And we'll be able to report back more on that in the April meeting.
Yeah.
One last item. FYI, we received 5 out of the 28 member cities assessments. You will, for those that we haven't received yet, you will be getting a personal email, no later than probably Monday, with regards to just a reminder to see if we can get that in. Thank you.
All right, and where are we with the school board representative? Have you had
In
contact?
school, we have, but she's been in contact with me. Her assistant has asked for schedules. I thought she would be here today. I'll find out. But
Okay.
We have been talking.
All right, let's make sure we follow up and
Yep.
make sure she has all the update. I would suggest scheduling a meeting, obviously, with her
Yep.
personally. Okay, any questions for the executive director? All right, audit selection committee update, Mr. Cole.
Yes, the RFP was posted. 19 firms looked on DemandStar and looked at the RFP, but only one submitted, Citrin Cooperman, which is a very respected and well-known CPA firm. There was an audit selection committee meeting right after this meeting to do a preliminary ranking of the one firm that has applied, but also to decide whether they're responsive and responsible. And they will then decide whether or not to interview the firm or just rank them first. That if they're going to interview them, it will be on April 11th. That's when that meeting is set. And then on the following executive committee meeting, that recommendation will come to this board and you'll decide how to rank the one firm.
The one other item for the audit selection committee obviously would be its predicate is to make sure that it was widely dispersed, that it used all standards within the industry for trying to obtain that. I know that we've had this discussion and I know that, but so there are actually 3 things that they need to decide in that, and just to make sure that it's widely dispersed. Mr. Vice Chair.
I'm a little surprised at that because I would think, I mean, most of those firms are always looking for business. So I wonder if there's a reason why so few decided to apply. That doesn't really make sense to me, and I don't know.
Maybe it's just too small an account. I mean,
That could be it. That could be it. And it'd be interesting to find that out.
Certainly, the audit selection committee could decide to revisit it and try to reach out to the firms that didn't. Sometimes we all do that in staff to find out why didn't somebody respond, and they
Yeah.
can say it doesn't mix, it's not ours. So that's certainly an item for the audit selection committee to consider.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
All right, any further discussion on that item? All right, SWA survey update, commercial survey update for March 2025. There you go.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Lori with Conceptual. So the survey is live. We're going to give it 4 weeks we're going to monitor responses. We've sent it out to all 28 member cities with a lovely toolkit, everything in all 3 languages again. We worked closely with RS this time. Not that we didn't last time, we did, but even closer because they were the ones that analyzed the results. So they had a heavy hand in putting the survey together. We've provided everything, so it's plug and play, easy for the cities. We do know it takes them about a week though to bring after we distribute till they get it like online and in their platforms, which is understandable. We also sent it to 53 different business organizations, chambers, the Broward Workshop, very large list. So we know that that's percolating as well. And then we're going to do, again, a local media outreach. Last time we did it with NBC. They did a nice story. So, we're covering all of our bases. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Questions regarding the commercial survey? One, I would say to the executive director, let's make sure a reminder email goes out to each of the governing board members that the kit has gone out and to push their cities to do it. I think that's an effective way. It often can get lost in the bureaucratic areas. So let's make sure we get that out. Any other recommendations for pushing this? Member Dunn?
Yes, I believe that you already have this on your list, but we want to make sure that we get it out to all of the chambers.
They're on. Yep.
You have the Broward Black Chamber of Commerce. There is a global, like a Hispanic chamber. So I want to make sure that we are, and there's a Haitian American Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that we get it out to all of the business, particularly minority and small business owners as well.
Yes, they're on the list.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're
Is
welcome.
it Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance on there?
Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance. I have the list here. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Maybe you can just circulate the list and that'll, if
Sure.
anyone's got additional recommendations, I know you'll be happy to do it. It's very easy to just push it.
Happy to do it.
Okay, any further questions on that? All right, thank you so
Thank
much for the update. All right, master plan update, SCS.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Executive Committee, Executive Director, Council. Daniel Deitch, SCS Engineers. 2 items I just want to touch on today. The follow-up items that have been requested by this body. The first is a construction and demolition debris management options white paper that is being drafted. We hope to have a copy delivered to the executive director by the end of this month. It focuses on Florida regulations, deposit programs, deconstruction mandates, disposal bans, and other policies. That will include example legislation so that if it does meet the needs and expectations of this body, it can be easily transferred to the county attorney's office for consideration and implementation. The second is a waste energy health impacts publication resources summary memo that came out of the task force white paper workshop. It is going to be an extensive list of peer-reviewed information, and we'll be compiling that for you. We are targeting mid-April to deliver that to the executive director. Also during the task force workshop, there were questions surrounding, well, what does the Solid Waste Authority of Palm Beach County actually dispose of? An email was sent to the executive director last night, and it will be distributed to this body. And there is also a backup report that goes into excruciating detail about that system. And if you have any questions, we can certainly address those either by email or back in front of this body. And the last is there is another workshop coming up, and this is going to focus on the commercial, industrial, and tourism sectors. And again, it's an opportunity to hear from the voice of the customer in terms of what they are doing and how the Solid Waste Authority might be able to help them be even more successful in managing their waste responsibly.
Let me just stop you there and let's talk about how getting that invitation out. I know it's already been drafted. It's gone out to a number of groups, and going forward, you'll work with the executive director like we did in the previous workshop to make sure we have sufficient time for each of the invitees and work with them to make sure their PowerPoint presentations and everything else are produced in advance for the executive committee, correct?
Correct.
All right. As that invite list moves forward, I would ask the executive director to make sure the executive committee is aware of who's accepting, who's been invited, and that way, if additional invitations are suggested, you can go route those through the executive director within the sectors. Mr. Cole, the Broward Workshop is a key component to this. Have you had the opportunity, or will you be speaking with the individual sectors, including healthcare, tourism, and retail?
Yes, I have been speaking to them and I will continue. And just by the way, every member of the Broward Workshop has gotten the commercial survey that went out by the executive director.
Okay.
So they are engaged, and I will be personally contacting some of the people.
All right. Obviously on the hospital side, Shane Strom and his staff are key. Let's get confirmation on that. On the marine industry, we know we have representatives. Kathleen obviously will be very heavily involved. Tourism, we need to somehow get the hospitality groups together, either through the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance or the Broward Workshop, but just need to get those confirmed earlier so that we don't run out of time. And I'll work with bigger retailers. I'll talk to the mall and the Panthers as well. Member Dunn.
I think Stacy Ritter's team might be helpful too in getting out to the hospitality group.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Very good idea. Stacy Ritter, we'll introduce you to that. Okay. All right,
Okay.
Member Truham.
This is completely unrelated. I just have a
Okay, hang on,
procedural.
let's just finish it, because
Okay.
I'm just on this one issue. Were you going to say something on that one?
I was just going to speak to the schedule overall.
Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to understand from the executive director, the flow of documents. So many times, like when we're getting drafts of white papers and things like that, it might be addressed to the executive committee. But we have TAC representatives, so I'm constantly forwarding everything. So I just want to understand, are the technical papers being sent to the TAC?
When the technical papers are drafted, the white papers are developed, the first initial draft that goes out where we ask comments, it goes to the executive committee, it goes to the governing board, and it goes to the list of TAC members. When we get the final version done, typically that is just sent to the executive committee, because then we post that online shortly thereafter.
Okay, because when we're getting it, I think the first time around, we're not seeing that the TAC members are getting it.
Yeah, that's right, because it's in the BCC, because I'm trying to make sure that there's no issue with regard
Sunshine.
to sunshine.
Okay,
But the initial, when the initial drafts, the draft white papers go out, for the list goes out to the executive committee, then another list, another one, the same one's developed for the governing board, and then a third one goes out to the list that I have for TAC members.
okay, thank you.
Member Dunn, and then member right now. Go ahead.
Thank you. Could you clarify for us who you have on the distribution list? Because things have shifted in my city,
Mhm.
and I just want to make sure that you have the right person.
Sure, I can send out distribution lists.
Please, that would be
to
very
everybody
helpful.
Today.
Thank you.
Member right now.
Just a suggestion to everyone on this committee is something that I did is, while we may have each one of us one or two staff conduits, I actually created a rule in my email through the city of Coconut Creek. It's a rule you can do in an email just to educate, that if Todd sends an email, it automatically gets sent in my city to about 8 different people. You have IT people in the very robust city of Hollywood. So just to give Todd a little less work, if we all go to our respective cities, create a rule.
We'll add that to the next workshop.
Yeah. That means that as opposed to the one designated person that he's doing, it automatically goes out. And a lot of times it actually solves the delay issue of maybe one person in my city getting it, who's going to then, when he gets around to it, forward it to 4 other people. Because some of this stuff is candidly time sensitive. It comes in a week before, and we want to. So the rule, very helpful. That's all I have.
Well done. Our IT expert, Josh Rydell.
One comment on that, I would like to, especially for the contacts, the TAC, et cetera, I'd like to say thank you to Melissa Doyle in the back over there for being helpful with helping me get that fully developed list.
Okay, Daniel.
So as is noted in the agenda, the tasks that have been completed include 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, and 10. Tenant was actually not on the agenda, but just want to confirm that that has been submitted. We are actively working on task 6, which is the recommendations and findings, and task 7, the implementation plan and timelines. For task 6, we're targeting a draft of early April 4th. And for task 7, the implementation plan and timeline, we are targeting April 9th. And again, those documents will be forwarded, as was just mentioned, by the executive director. And with a rule, it can be widely distributed beyond that to your staff.
Daniel, before you move on from that, let me ask you your sense of whether or not we should add question on task 3 to the next workshop, time allowing. This is kind of the beginning of the discussion about the financial process of what it means, what the current charges are, and some understanding of budgeting, et cetera. Is that something that we could add to the next workshop?
If it is the pleasure of this body, absolutely.
What's the feeling? Yep. All right, so let's make sure we add that to the next workshop. And ultimately, there'll have to be a separate workshop as we get further into the finances, but I think this is a good introduction to some of the issues. I know we've had flow control discussions that are either regulatory or financial, not completely covered by task 3, but it's part of that discussion and understanding what those costs are going to be. All right, thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions for SCS? All right, great. Thank you to your team. County update on the BIC cell development. Esteemed Kevin Kelleher.
Morning. As we all know that the county has a landfill out at Griffin Road, all the way down at the end. It has about over 500 acres of total land space, but only about 210 of those are actually usable for landfill purposes. Currently, we are using 52 acres roughly, and we're coming to the end of the most recent 10 acre cell. So what we're doing is we're doing cell development for another 20 acres, two 10 acre parcels. And that process takes a couple of years to get going. And it'll still be a class 3 landfill, and that's what we anticipate. So that's what we're doing. So I know there was it's not an expansion of the footprint. It's just a cell development within the existing footprint.
Right. So just to help us understand, the 52 acres is currently used in what capacity? What's it used for?
It's used for, commercial and residential bulk.
C&D, right? We just
bulk and C&D.
Okay.
And it will remain that.
And the 2 additional cells will be used similarly?
Correct.
And the idea is to increase it to 72 acres of the 210 that's
Correct.
usable, or 72
Correct.
of the 500? Help me to understand what you said 210 is usable. What's that mean?
210 is, the total footprint is over 500. The 210 is actually usable. The remaining part is environmentally protected or wetlands. So it's only 210. So I just, when people say there's 500 acres out there, I just want to clarify that only 210 of that is actually usable. We're currently using 52. That leaves 158 acres remaining. We're doing cell development on 20 of those 158.
Okay. And the purpose of the cell development
is to operate as a class 3 landfill for C&D.
So this is post-processed, sorted, recycled C&D, or is this for the purposes of sorting C&D and then dealing with the residual? It
is across the scale. I can't say it's post-recycled. We are looking, we've just done an analysis, had a consultant do an analysis as to what type of recycling we can do out there for C&D. Some of it is recycled, some of it's sorted, but I don't want to say it's fully recycled.
So of the 52 right now, the 52 acres that exist for C&D and bulk, how much of that is pure residual and how much of that was unrecycled, for lack of a better word?
Yeah. Again, we sort it, we sort out things that are clearly recyclable, but I don't want to say it's not as advanced recycled as other C&D landfills are.
All right. Well, we know that going forward on Monarch Hill, right, their plan after 27 is to only have residual C&D bulk. That's presumably what will happen, right?
Correct. Actually, right now they're doing residual C&D bulk.
Right.
They have a processing plant across the street from the landfill.
And does what the county does at Vic for the 52 acres match what Waste Management's doing in their processing?
We do not have that same recycling facility, no.
Okay, and how long has that been operating as a C&D bulk facility for Vic?
I don't know how long it's been as a C&D, but the most recent cell opened in about 2019.
Right, and prior to that, when did it first start accepting C&D?
Yeah, come on up. Natasha Austin, everybody.
The Broward County landfill opened in 1988, and we started accepting just C&D in bulk in 1991.
Okay. And has it, since 1991, has there been an effort by the county to recycle and reduce the level of C&D that's being accepted only to residual, which cannot be reused or repurposed?
No, at this point in time, what we do recycle are metals, and we pull out trace amounts of cardboard. We don't bury wash machines and dryers and white goods, things of that nature, but we are looking into that.
Okay, and are there reports on any recycling levels of the C&D bulk or anything that's accepted there?
Just for the metals.
All right, we have a number of cards up. Member Shuham.
My question is with regard to the remaining acreage. When we met at our workshop last week, our friend from Filthy Organics talked about, and not holding any numbers, but to compost for the entire county, roughly 100 acres would be needed. And we understand that we would have small composting facilities around, but are any of those additional acres available for composting facility?
Those acres would be for solid waste purposes, whether it's for composting or some other, other
Okay, so
landfilling or
as far as
something.
you know, there'd be no reason that you could not compost there, right?
No,
Okay.
there's no reason.
All right, thanks.
With respect to the C&D and bulk that's been accepted since 1991, has there been a discussion about partnering with private entities to go through the process of reducing to the residual only, that is actually recycling what's accepted there?
And I just want to be very clear about that. We do some level of it as, we pull out metals, we do some sorting. But there are more sophisticated and in a lot of ways costly other ways of doing higher levels of recycling. And that's what we're trying to clarify. So
No, I understand.
we
But the BIC we've been told how precious that site is, how it has to be preserved for generations to come, how it has to be really protected. And what I'm hearing is that from the county side, there's been no meaningful effort to match what the private partners are doing, Waste Management or otherwise, for recycling of C&D bulk and veg. And we've been having this discussion about this being low-hanging fruit. What I'm trying to understand is, has there been any discussion about taking from wherever you're collecting the C&D bulk, having it processed at a MRF or somewhere else before it goes to our precious remaining landfill site, so that all we're dealing with is residual as opposed to that which is unrecycled?
I don't know if we've had any in the years past, but there have been none recently. But we have been focusing on getting an analysis as to what we can do on our existing site to do more recycling.
And how have you been doing that? That is getting this analysis. What does that mean? I mean, because
Well,
we've been gathered for a couple of years here, and SWWG was before that. And there's been discussions about C&D and bulk and veg, and publicly, articles written. There's been op-eds. What's the county doing to advance that?
like I said, we just received an analysis last week. We're evaluating what the different options are under that analysis, and we're looking to put together a plan to initiate some of the recommendations.
Okay, with respect to that which is accepted at BIC right now, C&D bulk and veg, how does that travel to the BIC? Do you have contracts with haulers? Is it only from county sites? What is the composition of that?
Currently, we're only accepting C&D in bulk from Broward County generators, commercial establishments, residents. We take no out-of-county waste. And I will mention that back in the resource recovery days, we weren't open to the 5 municipalities that were not a part of the system. So we weren't taking in as much. Then we opened it up, and it just so happens that our largest customer is Pembroke Pines right now. So we have been working with the consultant to see what our options are as it pertains to recycling more of the C and D and the bulk that's going in the landfill. So we're in the process of reviewing that now.
So I missed what you said. You're in discussions with who?
HDR performed an analysis.
Okay.
So
That's an outside company being brought in to
Correct.
consult on this?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Member Shuham.
I don't know where this fits into the puzzle, but certainly with our consultant, maybe as part of the master plan, a suggestion would be to put together an RFP for a private partner to undertake exactly what you're describing, Chair, at the site. In other words, now you're getting down to kind of nitty gritty of this master plan, but if there is a way sooner to invite industry partners to come in and undertake that work, let's do it, right?
Maybe. The county might be able to do it as well.
Well, look, to jump in on that, I mean, we've been discussing C&D bulk and veg being the low-hanging fruit for recycling, and it turns out the county's not done anything since 1991 on this. And there's plenty of folks out there that know this is the low-hanging fruit. This is not novel. It's not been invented by me or others. I think this has to be expedited. We're hearing that there's a crisis, and that's why Monarch Hill had to be expanded. We're hearing that we are running out of landfill space. We're hearing about all this other stuff. And right now, what's happening is all the C&D bulk and veg is going in there. I appreciate you sorting the metals. I appreciate that. That's a good start. But we don't even have a recycling rate. I'm scared to guess what that recycling rate might look like. But the county's been saying it's in a leadership role on these issues. And when we have haulers who've sent letters, have been saying you should mandate that every bit of C&D bulk and veg goes to a licensed MRF first for sorting and recycling. These are not novel questions. These are things that have been talked about. This needs to be expedited if we're going to hear this is the most precious site. Now, add to the next part of this is we're told we have to save that site because of disaster recovery. We're told that, God forbid, there's a storm. That's why we need Monarch Hill expanded. That's why we need to expand the footprint. And yet what's happening is literally nothing to enhance C&D bulk and veg, which is the low-hanging fruit. And at the same time, I'm hearing there's an exigency over disaster recovery. So I'm highly disappointed in this. I know I'm not disappointed in either of you. Please don't take me and misinterpret what I'm saying. But this has to be a priority of the county, and it should be on the next agenda to say we need to do something, because this should have been done in the last 30 years. Every other industry has been doing it. Waste management has the expertise. They're available. I guarantee you they'd love to be part of this process. Right? Yeah, possibly.
I just want to be clear again. It's just, there are different methods of how to recycle out there. We do one level. So what we're looking at is there more that we can do? As far as the yard waste, we do separate that out. We do have windrows where we have the yard waste collected out there. So I don't want to leave this board with some impression that we're doing nothing. So there is something, there's always more you could be doing. And that's what we're looking at, is how do we expand upon that?
That's fair. And this is the first time we're having any report. I don't know where else I could go to get the information. I appreciate you being here and sharing this and being candid with us. But I think there needs to be a much more significant public discussion about what's being done there. And obviously we could all do more. I could do more in my house. I understand that. All of us could do more. That's not the measure. The question is, are we going anywhere near the recycling rates that we ought to be doing that have been the basis and foundational argument for exigency and other sites that the county went and made decisions about, because we're running out of landfill, and yet nothing significant that can be reported is being done in the analysis here. So I apologize for expressing my frustration, but I'm embarrassed that this is the first I'm hearing of it. Member Shuham.
This is directed to the Vice Chair. My question is, we talked last time about the ordinance that's being worked on mandating all this, but is there anything being worked on to, at this stage, to increase the recycling rates out there? Or how does that get moved forward in the county in a faster way?
Yeah, and this isn't the first time we've talked about this.
This is the first time I'm hearing about C&D bulk and veg not being recycled.
No, what I mentioned over the last couple of years is that there has been a study with HDR to figure out how to go about doing that, and to process yard waste, glass, and C&D. That is all being studied to figure out how to get it done and where to do it out there. So the initial aspects of this has been in the works for over a year now. And, so, and I thought, I would have liked to have seen this be done earlier as well. But once we've all been doing this, the idea of that being a campus, like a recycling campus, is the consideration right now. So it's not as if things aren't being looked at. The idea with the C&D legislation is being looked at currently in the county attorney's office. Obviously, that would be affected there. And my hope is that it becomes a recycling campus. And that's part of where, I think where the county's looking at.
That's fair.
I mean, I think you brought this up
I-
a couple of
wrote
years
about
ago.
it.
Well,
I wrote
yeah,
about this. I
and-
wrote about that we needed to be doing
Right.
C&D bulk well, and what I didn't know is that it wasn't being processed. I don't think we need the last puzzle piece. I know that's not what you're saying. To
Right.
decide what to do with what's being accepted there. And we certainly don't need legislation for the county to impose on its own site what needs to be done.
And
The idea of the legislation was to impose on everybody else on what they're doing.
And the county commission is in full support of doing this. So it's, and I think it's trying to do it as quick as it can and figure out, one, you have to open the cells and you have to do different things. I'm not sure how with the yard waste, that one's trying to figure out how do you do that with the haulers and all that kind of stuff.
I guess,
There's some great possibilities here.
I'm sure Dustin would be glad to help you,
I
right,
know.
Dustin?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
guess my question is, does it make sense for the county to do some sort of RFP to bridge the time between now and when you have a recycling campus? Because the materials are so valuable, just let somebody come and do it. And reduce what's being left there from now until that future date when we have such a campus. It just seems like there's an opportunity to partner with the private sector who finds the materials to be valuable.
It could be. That could be one possibility. I think we're waiting for the recommendations from HDR. And then whether or not the county can handle it in and of itself or it needs to do a P3 or partner up, that's to be determined.
Remember right now.
There's a fundamental issue here everyone in this room is missing with this discussion. The county has made it crystal clear that they are in charge of the landfill. They're in charge of Monarch Hill. They're in charge of their landfill. They're going to do what they want. Crystal clear. It was done in the ILA. Am I correct with that?
County's
What?
in charge of disposal.
Okay. It's their issue. So we're beating our heads against the wall. The county's also made it crystal clear the last meeting we were here, and I say the county I directed to Beam, but he speaks for the board on this board, is they're not going to buy the 26 acres from Waste Management. They've made that clear, at least through their intermediary, but that's going to be up to the big board to choose. So we're really here in futility talking about this because it's for them to do. So I remind all of us that we're upset at recycling. What can we do? They don't want us involved in that because it's what they're doing. So while I appreciate, Chair Ryan, your fervor on this subject, I've lost my breath with it because this was all negotiated well before we're sitting here today. And the county tells us to stay in our lane. So we can talk about this till we're blue in the face, but until the county commission wants to do something, we have no say and no power. That's all I just choose to remind us all about.
All right, well, we're going to have to work with our partners going forward to make sure that all of the commodities within the waste stream that can be recycled are recycled, that they're reduced where they can be. And all I'm suggesting, and I don't think it's futile, this discussion, I'm suggesting this needs to start immediately. This should have already been done. I understand it may have taken a year. I don't know that cells need to be put up. I will acknowledge I don't have all the information. So this is a visceral response. It may not be the most educated response. But it does occur to me that if in the last 30 years there's been nothing done to work as Waste Management has been doing to reduce C&D and bulk and veg to be able to maintain the precious site, then something needs to happen urgently. And it is the county's responsibility, but we do have influence on this. We have the opportunity to make sure that we are expressing to the Board of County Commissioners how important this is. The public has the role in making sure the Board of County Commissioners knows about it. The haulers are going to say, you don't need legislation for processing. They're going to say you can do the C&D bulk veg now. And there are partners out there that will say, hey, we can step into the breach in the meantime to figure that out perhaps. But I also recognize that the wheels of government often are moving slow if not impeded by inertia. So, member,
Yeah, I mean, part of the fervor of this group and the previous iteration of it, what this group has been talking about with trying to do compost, all that was the impetus for me asking the county commission to do exactly that study. So it is not like it's being unheard. It is what this board was asking for, that I went and asked our county commission and our county administrator, do an analysis. Let's figure out how to do this. So it's not, I mean, it's absolutely a conversation that started here that went to there and is ending up in, it will end up in some kind of recycling campus there. So it's it's not like it's unheard.
I appreciate that, and I don't want to beat this to death, but I don't think I am, because, you know, we were told there was such an exigency on Monarch Hill, and the wheels of government moved extraordinarily fast. We could not wait even 6 months to make sure we're moving forward, and we're waiting for an analysis on how to process C&D bulk and veg, which is not new science. It's there, and so I just say the county should move as expeditiously as it seemed to do, working all hours, late hours, and doing what's necessary to get the agreements in place to get it done, just like it did Monarch Hill. That's all I have to say on it.
Yeah, and again, I would remind this board, what I said before is we are doing some level. There is more technology that could be used. There's different other methodologies. That's what we're exploring. So I don't want to leave here that we're not doing any recycling or any diversion.
And I would love to have the detailed reports of what exactly is being done and what that percentage is, just like we've received in all the other studies from SCS and from the other folks who do processing, what they're achieving on those rates. And that would help us to understand what the county's doing. Thank you, Mr. Keller. Any further discussion on this? All right, new and old business informational material from Member Horland. Member Horland.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. It seemed to be the will of this board when we were talking about what we could start doing right away. And we had discussed jumping in on recycling. I know that not everybody here had attended the South Florida Regional Planning Council conference on recycling, and there was a phenomenal presentation by the Department of Environmental Protection. So I just want everybody to take a look at what they have already rolled out. And at that point, they were asking the cities to kind of take that and use that to start to educate their public. So I wanted that included, and I appreciate the executive director putting that on the agenda so that everybody had that material, because I think that's something that we could start, ASAP.
Thank you, Member Horland. Any additional, Mr. Executive Director, go ahead.
Not on that.
Okay. Anything further, Member Horland, on the materials provided?
No, sir.
Okay.
I'll just add to that, and the material's unbelievable stuff, and they will uniquely make it to every city. That was the part, so that we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just, it's like it's all there, it's all ready to go. Just plop in your city, and you've got all the images, all the graphics, everything you need, ready to go, up and running, relevant, up to date. It's as simple as that. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Executive Director.
Another topic.
Yep. Go ahead. Oh, sorry. Member Dunn. Sorry.
Thank you. I actually am grateful for this, because one of the items that I wanted to amplify today was the need to begin now on education and outreach. And so I'm curious if through our consultant, we can kind of create some sort of coordinated rollout, whether we're using this material or something else, as a part of the master planning process. And I would be happy to be a part of an education outreach subcommittee so that we can, kind of start moving things forward. We have already some of the results from the first survey. In another couple of weeks, we should get the results from the business survey. And I think that data plus information like this gives us enough to start a preliminary campaign. And so I'd like to volunteer to be a part of a committee so that we can just get the process moving.
I think it's a great idea. I think the third component to that is the partners who have said who have encouraged us to find consistency in the messaging for the issues of reducing contamination. They're a key component in that third party that needs to be at the table with you or whatever subcommittee. I'll interpret that as a motion to form a subcommittee on education and outreach to advise. Is there a second? Second by Member Horland. Discussion on that. Reminding everyone that in order to do that, obviously there's sunshine law. Can't have discussions outside. We would have to have this organized, most likely like we do the audit committee, coordinated at the same time of executive committee meetings. Everyone in agreement in that? All right. Any discussion on that item for formation? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, passed unanimously. Those who wish to participate in that can email separately the executive director. And then at the next executive committee meeting, we can go ahead and begin the formulation of that. Does that work, Mr. Cole? All right, thank you, Member Dunn. Mr. Executive.
I think we have a question on that.
But he's on, and he just wanted to comment right into the record.
Yep.
That he thinks if it's the fifth location, be helpful as a field trip for the.
Individually, of course, because of sunshine. A great suggestion by the mayor. Thank you, Cliff. Mr. Executive Director, you had something you wanted to raise?
Okay, I just, in closing today, with regards to the schedule coming up, I know that we've kind of briefed over that Gantt chart and where we are with a couple of things, but I want to put it in plain English. So the recommendations, Task 6 and Task 7, as you heard from SCS earlier, they should be out here in April. We'll be able to get those finished up. We'll be able to work through those. You'll have the ability to provide comments. Then in May, we should be able to, by the end of May, and Daniel, I'm looking at you for this one. I think we agreed that we should be able to have the draft master plan done most likely by the end of May, correct? Yes. Okay. So with that, we will be ready to start the 4 outreach meetings in June. We are preparing the drafts, what that meeting, those presentations look like, the locations, et cetera. Currently, we've had a meeting last couple of Thursdays with Mercury and the SCS team, and we are going to be moving forward. So to give everyone an idea, we will be having those 4 outreach meetings in June.
So let's discuss that, because
we don't have dates yet. We're working through that and some coordination on sites. I'll have more information for you at the next meeting.
Let's discuss though the process of that. If the draft master plan is coming out in May, I think we'll probably need one more workshop to go over that to make sure we're all on the same page as to what before we start having public meetings. That's 1 and 2. I would just note, I think it's a good idea, but we'll be entering the summer months. I think it's encouraged. Unlike the county, we don't take vacations at the city level like that. Just kidding. But we are mindful that while we should do it throughout the summer, and in some sense it may be easier for in some areas, that probably will have to continue outside the summer in order to get the most information out. So in terms of scheduling, we should have that discussion at the next either workshop, which I think is the next one coming up, versus executive committee, to make sure everybody's on the same page for that process. Additionally, obviously, the Education Outreach Subcommittee will have an influence on that kind of messaging to be presented back to the Executive Committee. And I want to make sure they have the time to also take a look at that. Member Ryan.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to follow up. I know that we discussed this several months ago about the 3 cities that aren't on the SWA. Has there been any reach out? Because I know we discussed if they could enter it, at what time. And I want to know if we made any progress in regarding that.
I've
I've
talked with Member Pines, and they are waiting to see the master plan. Their argument was they didn't want to join until they saw the master plan. That's okay. So when the master plan is, they'll take it into consideration.
All right. Thank you.
And I do think that part of that educational outreach, right, will then be to work directly with those individual cities, both behind the scenes as well as publicly and front-facing meetings with. Member Rydell.
Just curious, if I may, were you at the meeting where they opted out of joining? You and Greg there?
I was not.
Okay, I'm curious for Pines if it was a unanimous decision to wait, or it was.
It was unanimous. Yep.
Okay.
If I remember right.
Hitting us.
With regard to the timing, and we'll talk about this more, it is in the to be able to meet the August 5th extension. All right, it is critical that we be able to try to do these outreach meetings in June so that we can meet that time frame. And we'll have more data on that, more information on that at the next meeting.
Member Dunn.
perhaps it would be wise to at least preliminarily say what our blackout period is, because I know most of us have an idea already of when your commission's going on break. So that way we can give you some guidance now in terms of what could potentially work. Is that okay for everybody?
Perfect. Okay. One other item I'd like to discuss, and it's in part related to the conversation we've had over a long period of time regarding BIC, and that's disaster recovery. We've not had a meaningful discussion on what disaster recovery means. We've heard that one of the reasons that we needed to maintain BIC, that we had to expand Monarch Hill, was that in the case of a storm, how do we process? And I know there are companies out there that have done this, that have handled this, that have post-storm can tell us what it takes to manage a site on disaster recovery over certain assumptions, right? Whether you're processing as it comes through the gate or how you're handling it. I think it would be helpful for us to understand that, because I think even against the backdrop of what we want to do, we also have to be mindful that there are sufficient sites and capacity to handle disaster recovery in the event. I'll open it up to the members to see whether or not that's something you would like added to a workshop as well. There are a few companies in the area, I think, that probably do this work and could give us an insight as to what it takes and what volume. Member Rydell and then Vice Chair.
I mean, I think all of us have vendors in our respective cities for this. I know we do. I know the company we contract with.
Whether they process or simply haul to a site, right? It's a different capacity. I know we have had the benefit of having a large track site that we could contract with to keep it in our city. Not every city has that potential, so they rely more on hauling to another site. So
I'm just trying to hammer it down, because we've had presentations on a city level in terms of vendors that we're choosing, arguably to haul, clean up and haul. But are you talking the second step?
The second step, because that's where we're having to reserve a lot of acreage.
I would agree with that, and I would support that.
Member Dunn.
Yeah. So could we go back to the calendar?
Vice Chair, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just on that same thing, the county has numerous contracts with various vendors that, in that case, that we're protected, so that they can take it to Monarch Hill, they can take it to the BIC. That's kind of, and I think as well to Okeechobee.
I think it's also understanding the process. We've learned a lot about the process of handling other portions of the commodity stream. I think a lot of some cities will think of it as just cleaning it off the street, and wherever it goes, it's fine. But a lot of folks don't know what happens when it hits the gate, right? Is it processed immediately, or is it just stored there and handled? Is it, do they begin the process of shredding down yard waste immediately to reduce and haul that out? I think we need to understand, because it helps us to understand what type of acreage we need to be mindful of for certain assumptions of disaster. Whether it's the West Coast, as we've seen, that continues to have its challenges, but what that process is. So it would just be on the disaster side.
And I think it changes depending on how big, what kind of.
No question.
Because I know, like when Wilma came through in Hollywood, we were able to process it all in our own parks, and just huge mounds of mulch.
Right.
We haven't seen something like what happened on the West Coast, where it's entire structures and entire amounts of C and D that are having to be dealt with.
Right.
We haven't had to do that here.
Right, of course, and I think that's part of the discussion.
Yeah.
All right.
That's right.
All right, I'll work with the executive director on that. Member Dunn, you had.
Yeah, we were, we can go back to kind of giving Todd some guidance on the dates that we're all out for holidays. So, there are going to be 4 meetings, Todd, you said?
Yes. For the 4 outreach meetings, that's correct.
Okay, and then
Go ahead. Sorry?
Okay, is the intention that they happen all in the month of June, or is it the intention that they happen over a 2-month period before August?
No, we were trying to have the date on the Gantt chart, as you see, we're trying to have all 4 of those outreach meetings completed by June 16th.
Oh, you want to have them all completed by June
We
16th?
were working towards that as a goal so that we could stay on track. If we go past, obviously, the August 5th deadline, we need to make sure that at the May governing board / workshop meeting, that extension has been
Well,
given.
that extension has to happen either way.
Correct.
That's not debatable. We have to get that extension, right? So regardless of the master plan, we're not going to get approvals over the summer of everybody and sign on and all the things that need to be done. So that's a separate issue. So that has to be done. In terms of getting done all 4 by June 16th, if we're only getting the master plan the end of May and not being, we have to schedule our workshop, I think that's ambitious. I
Mhm.
also think that it may run the risk of not providing adequate coverage throughout the county as to what we want to, because it's a big deal. Every
Yeah.
one of these are, from an infrastructure and time commitment, a big deal. So I think what we should do is at the very next meeting, have a very sincere discussion about when we're going to schedule those, along with the blackout dates. And then I'll talk to member for in a second, and then talk about how and where we're going to do those. Because we also haven't had a full discussion on where we're going to hold those. We know that having them in one location for the county, gathers a certain circumference to the site. And we need to make sure that we're reaching out everywhere. Member first.
Just a suggestion. I mean, it looks like, I don't know what we had on planned for our May executive committee, but maybe we used the month of May and both meetings to go over the entire draft that's coming in. That gives it,
But he said the end of May 16th is.
but there's parts of it that we might be able to look at. Are there parts that we would be able, is it possible to bifurcate some of this? That we would be ready to look at on May 16th? And then at the workshop, see the other part of it? Does that make sense?
So again,
Go ahead, Denny.
yeah, our interest is being as flexible and agile to respond to your needs. I will remind you that the way that the master planning project was
Yeah, right.
communicated to the world, and ultimately we were selected to do this, was to prepare a series of white papers that looked at specific issues.
Right.
All of those will be appendices to the master plan. The master plan, as you know, needs to be easily understood by a wide audience, from elected officials to the general public. What we've been discussing is essentially a very robust, I'm going to use the term executive summary, but that's just really for conceptual purposes. But it tells the story of what the feedback that we've received on each white paper, of how we can understand where we've been, where we are, and how do we move forward with the eye of maximizing the beneficial use of the waste stream components. So
let me ask you this, if we were to tighten up each one of those white papers, the way that because you're using them as draft, correct?
no, the white papers,
Not as a draft.
yeah, the process has been, we prepare a draft of the white paper. We
Right.
submit it to the executive director. He circulates it to the executive committee and the governing board and TAC. We receive feedback and we finalize the white papers, and those are reflected on the Solid Waste Authority's website. We are now going to extract the salient points from each of those
Each one of
white
those.
papers to construct the master plan, so that we're answering who, what, where, when, how, and why.
All right, I think that the point's well taken, though, by the vice chair, that we use May as much as possible to start clearing up the issues of recommendations that we think we're headed towards. We'll have to work with the executive director to deal with that. We can talk a little bit about it perhaps at the April 10th workshop as well. But it's a point well taken. We should begin talking about the schedule for what it looks like to make sure, because listen, June is still a good date. A lot of people haven't left. So we certainly want to take advantage of that. I mean, having a bunch of workshops in July, it almost guarantees, right? That we're not going to get. Okay, so that's not really the issue, right? It's about the public workshops, about the folks that can attend. I'm not disagreeing that that's important, that the members be able to attend, but what I'm talking about is that these are meant to be informational workshops out to the public, and so we need to make sure we're effective. A lot of folks will be out. So I think at the April 10th workshop, let's really have an identification of what the proposed sites or general locations and dates, and then we can work ourselves as a body to make sure that the decisions or recommendations that we need to make are sufficiently flushed out so that those informational meetings can occur. They need to be effective as to what we're saying. Obviously, part of the informational workshops in each of these for the public is just educating on the crisis and what's not being done and what we need to do. So that portion we know we have in the can. We know what that is. The next step is, what are we trying to accomplish and what are those methods for doing it so we can take input. Member Horland.
Chair, I just have a quick question for Daniel. We talk about getting the feedback on the white papers from TAC. Is there any plan or desire to hear from TAC as a whole? to gather that group back together? Because I know they haven't met in quite some time.
I do think there's value because ultimately, I mean, they're a technical resource
Right.
within each of the municipalities.
Okay.
So their voice is incredibly important. And I should also point out, it's not specifically to your question, but we are also soliciting feedback through the website generally and on any of the specific documents that have been prepared. So that we have our ear to the ground. We're trying
Right.
to gather as much information so that we achieve our commitment, which is to be transparent and inclusive and be responsive. Ultimately, it's this body that will be endorsing and through the
Right.
governing board as well. But we want to make sure that we listen as broadly as possible to the voice of the customer, which was really the genesis of the last workshop that we had and the one that is planned.
And I appreciate that. I just think there's often value in having a Socratic discussion, especially with those TAC members. So I
Yeah,
like
we
that being
welcome it.
considered. Okay.
The tension
Within the
is
time.
the schedule.
Schedule, I understand.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I would note that every member of the TAC has been receiving every draft white paper, and they have kind of the obligation to weigh in and provide comments. Some have, as we've heard, that rules that we knew, the new electronic rules that have been taught to us this morning. But to that point, Member Horland, what I would suggest, at least from the executive committee level, is to make sure that we're going back to our own members of the TAC, make sure they have gone back. If they have any comments on any of even the finalized white papers, that we get those sooner than later, right? We can always revisit something if there's something we've missed. I think in terms of TAC, I mean, there's a few of the white papers that are more important than the others, that are coming out. So, all right, Member Dunn.
Yes, Todd, if you could please just make sure that we get the agenda and the backup at least 1 week in advance. This is a topic that requires me to pay special, unless it's marketing and outreach, I have to really have time to digest the information and come prepared. Thank you.
I can tell you as a chair, that's been the goal. We've been meeting so rapidly that sometimes it's difficult to do that.
Yeah.
And the interim of it has been to make sure that information that may ultimately be part of the backup, but is not yet a part of an agenda, is communicated out. So there's been a balance here. It'd be obviously a lot easier if we were meeting, once a month, and just the way the pace. So I value and appreciate the extraordinary work that the members of this executive committee and the public may not realize, the amount of information that we have to digest before these meetings, often coming only a few days before. But I agree with you, and we've been trying to achieve at least getting the agenda out, but that's been a work in progress, particularly where it seems like almost every week or two we have a meeting. But now we have, as you said, we have help, and we'll work towards that. Member Fur.
A couple things real quick. I did hear from Maura Bowman.
Okay.
She's in Tallahassee today. She didn't know about this. She didn't have the meeting, so.
Her staff.
Okay, all right. So they'll coordinate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
And they have a school board meeting at the next during the next workshop, but she'll be making the next one.
Okay, perfect.
With regard to the emergency, every year the county has a consultant come in to go over, to look at all the possibilities. The cities can be invited to all that, and we'll make sure they are.
Member right now.
Two brief things of new business. Our August meeting is actually docketed as it on the schedule is the same week as the League of Cities annual conference. So just to say that, because I know a majority of the members here.
I'll be here.
I'll be here.
The county will be here.
We'll be with you.
Just food for thought if we want to maybe address that meeting, Todd, if you want to look at that. And then the other thing, I spoke to Beam on this request before the meeting.
Just before you do, I think in light of that being the 15th, moving it up the earlier Friday is less productive. I think for a lot of folks, they may still be out. Probably have to go the following week to the 22nd. Look at that, and we can do a survey to see where everybody's going. So thank you, Member Rydell, for that.
And then the other thing, I'd ask the Vice Chair if he's okay with it, to direct the Deputy County Administrator who's here. Every time when we come to these meetings, we all have to stop and give our IDs. So I was suggesting, if you're on the Planning Council and Advisory Board for the county, they give you an ID so you can come in a meeting. So maybe, Vice Chair, we can all get IDs to come to all these meetings.
I'll ask Kevin what the possibility of that is.
All right.
He'll bring it back next time.
Do you see that? You see, Member Fur, that everybody wants to be part of the county. See?
I know. And then everybody will be paying. That's good.
And since the county's paying for everything, that's why.
That's it. I know. Yeah.
All right. Anything further? Any further business? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, one thing,
Okay.
real quick, because I think there's a zero waste conference that's happening in Hollywood, April 1st, April 3rd, 4th. Okay, just letting everybody know. It sounds like they have quite a few speakers.
All right. What I would ask is the
At the end,
executive
cool.
director to send out to all the members of the governing board, not just the executive committee, the existence of this workshop that's coming up, as well as to the members of the TAC. Okay. Any further business? Devin? Yes. Any further business for the executive committee? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Beam Fur, second by member Shuham. All in favor, say aye. All right. Members of the audit selection committee, please stay.